Registration and set creation with Metaphormic. Currently, anyone can use Metaphormic for free. The use of the Metaphormic Scratchpad or the Metaphormic Chrome extension does not currently require registration. You must register to create a set. Registration is also free. We at Metaphormic are not experts in the subject matter or topics that are of interest to you. The information and knowledge transfer enabled by Metaphormic starts with you when you create and publish your own sets to offer users your insight and expertise when crafting their own communications. You start the registration process by directing your browser to metaphormic.com/registration. Fill in your email address, desired username, first and last name, and desired password, minimum of 6 characters. Click on the Register control to initiate the registration process. Once the account is approved, you will receive a confirmation email at the email address you used with registration. You are ready to log in and begin the process of creating your own customized set. To create a set, direct your browser to metaphormic.com/auth. Enter your credentials, and you'll be presented with the set creation screen. I'll demonstrate how I created the one called Sexual Assault Discussions, a beginning set. We click the Add Set control and we get to the Manage Set screen where we have 3 fields in this dialog. We have a name, category, and description. The name is what you would like the set to be called, which for this purpose we'll just call it Sample Set. There's a set of predefined categories for your use. If you find one that you do not like, let us know and we'll add the category for you, as I'm sure other people would like to use your category as well. And then we just add a description of what the set is about. This will show up in the Scratchpad and X-ray mode to help people understand the goal or use of your set. Here the description helps people find the set and associate it with this video. Remember to periodically hit save so you don't lose your work. And then you'll get back to the screen in which lists the sets that you have created. We're going to continue editing the sample set, show you how we got to the sexual assault discussion, a beginning set. To make edits and add your first term, select the Add Term control. This brings up the Add Term dialog that includes 3 fields: a term, a description, and a list type. The term field is where you enter the word or set of words. For this beta, your term can be a maximum of 4 words. The parsing engine watches for an exact match to this term and processes it based upon the other information in this dialog. The description field is where you enter an annotation that you would like the parsing engine to associate with your term. Some explanation of why you've included the term and what you would like the author to know about the term when considering the term's use in the author's communications. The list type is a drop-down that identifies a term as a used term, a don't use term, or a substitution term. Use and don't use are similar, the difference being the type of highlighting used by the parsing engine when it recognizes the term. All your used terms will be highlighted in green and all your don't use terms will be highlighted in red. The substitution list type is different in that identification of a term as a substitution term changes the dialog to include one or more alternative terms that you would like the parsing engine to present whenever the substitution term is found. There is a substitution list where you provide an alternative term and a description used to annotate the alternative term. You may provide multiple alternatives, and the description field is where you enter information to assist the author in selecting among the different substitution alternatives that you have provided. A term that you have identified with the substitution list type will be yellow highlighted by the parsing engine. The description will be available to help explain why you believe a substitution is necessary or desirable, and the alternatives will be presented as well. And each alternative will have its description available as an annotation. While the current version of the Metaphormic services limits the length of the term, the target of the parsing engine, the substitution may be much longer. This is one way that you may use a service to communicate template or resource information. Also important is that the parsing engine constantly watches the state of the author's message as it is being crafted, and changes and substitutions in that message may change the content of the communication such that the parsing engine finds new terms to highlight. Thus, terms may be nested inside each other, which is part of the mechanism used to provide the sample quizzes and template features in the demonstration. For this video, we will add 3 target terms, terms that you may believe would be helpful in writing to a victim or in discussing a victim of a sexual assault. A disclaimer: a subject matter linguist undoubtedly will be able to produce a much more effective set than this one, but this video is to demonstrate how anyone can create a set. We believe that when Metaphormic matches the subject matter experts to those that want to write better on a particular topic, the Metaphormic service is working as intended to help transfer this knowledge in a way that is simple, effective, and scalable. For example, when speaking to a victim of sexual assault, it can be important to tell the victim that you believe them. Thus we include a "I believe you" as a used term. In this field term, this is the target of the parsing engine. I believe you. And we list it in the, as I said, this drop-down list identifies the 3 different types of terms: use, don't use, and substitution. For this one, we're recommending that people use it, and when someone types it, it will show up in green, confirming that they have used a term that is desired. And we continue to add terms. For example, some people suggest that you should avoid certain terms, such as "what were you," as in what were you wearing, or what were you thinking, or maybe they suggest you should avoid asking various "why didn't you" types of questions. Why didn't you call the police, or why didn't you fight back? Thus, we will include 2 don't use terms. What were you? They all start with "what were you thinking?" And we call this a don't use term. When someone types out "what were you thinking" in any context, it'll become red highlighted and the term will become flagged for the user. And similarly, why didn't you? Why didn't you call the police? Why didn't you tell a friend? Why didn't you, whatever you think. We avoid these terms so we don't blame the victim. Also, we believe it's important not to sympathize with the perpetrator. Another phrase that you will want to avoid are phrases like "boys will be boys." Don't sympathize with the perpetrator. Don't use. Again, these will be highlighted in red should someone try to type them out, cluing them in that this is something that you as a set creator would prefer that they don't use. Other don't use phrases could include date rape or acquaintance rape, which can lead to a confusion that these actions are somehow different or less serious than rape. Some statistics suggest that in 7 out of 10 sexual assaults, the perpetrator is someone that the victim knows. Instead, you may want to name the crime and provide information about the perpetrator, something such as sexually assaulted by an intimate partner or sexually abused by a family member. And speaking of victims and survivors, in discussions you may wonder whether to use the term victim or survivor. Both terms can be applicable, and there may be, in some cases, a reason to select one term over the other. This is where the substitution type can be helpful. You may include both terms and suggest the alternative with appropriate description material, including a suggestion that or a recommendation that ask the person you're talking to about which is their preference. So let's see how the substitution term would be done. So we say, if you should type victim, consider whether to use survivor, substitution type, and then we get a list of one or more alternatives that you'll be able to put here. And so we'll say survivor, and so what we would normally put here is something that would help the writer distinguish between these. For example, in victim is a term, the description we would use when referring to someone who has been affected by sexual violence, when discussing a particular crime, or when referring to aspects of the criminal justice system. So that's when you might say that victim is a proper term. However, if that is not how you're intending to use when you use victim, you don't mean those concepts, and you instead referring to a survivor, then the tool will flag survivor as an alternative to victim. And the annotation will be that we can use a description that we want to consider using survivor when referring to someone who has gone through a recovery process, or when discussing the short or long-term effects of sexual violence. And we save that, and we can also then do the reverse and say, if you find the word survivor, and we say that if we're going to use the definition that survivor is someone who has gone through recovery, and that's not what you mean by the terms survivor, then we suggest maybe you mean victim instead. And victim, in this case, we'll copy the material before. As someone who has been affected by sexual violence when discussing a particular crime or when referring to aspects. And so someone who has been affected by sexual violence. And so either one of these, survivor or victim, will be highlighted in yellow, and in this case, an alternative to victim will be survivor, and an alternative to survivor will be victim. Once completed, again, make sure you save your work. There are 3 different status indicators: draft, pending, and approved. When you're ready to make your set available to the public, request approval of the set for publication. You do that in the actions screen that talks about this blue button for update. And you'll see this other blue control, send for approval. Status is draft, and as soon as you hit this send for approval, it changes to pending status, in which administrators of Metaphormic will review your set for compliance with terms of service. Once they review it and approve it, your set is available for publication. Once approved, the set can be published and the status will be changed to approved. You may edit and modify the set after that. And if you should change your mind before it's approved, you can simply cancel the request and make further changes to your set. And that is how simple it is to create a set. Just target terms, a description, and the type of term it is, as a don't use, which will get red highlighted, a use, which will get green highlighted, or a substitution term, which will provide alternatives for the target term. So let us now see, I have published this the earlier version, and let's see it in action. So we go to Metaphormic.com. We go to the scratchpad. I've already selected the sexual assault discussion, a beginning set. We click on it. There's a discussion of it. In this particular case, some of the words we found from a website called RAIN, Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Although, to be clear, the set is not created, associated with, or produced by, or in any way endorsed by RAIN. We provide it as a guide in the hopes that those more knowledgeable and competent would be motivated to generate a greatly improved set. Please contact us with any suggestions. But those words that we put in there, boys will be boys, if you happen to be typing that, or victim, you see it's yellow, and we can we click it, and it says you may want to choose survivor instead, and we click survivor, and it changes to survivor. And we click survivor, and it says, you may want to use victim instead, and it gives you some discussion about that. We click the red term, and it says, do not sympathize with the perpetrator. Why didn't you call the police? Do not ask the person. And so you can see the set that you created in action in the scratch pad. The numerical count up here shows that there are 2 terms that are don't use and 1 where there's a substitution available. That concludes this video. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you get great use out of these services.